Do you think that's what's happening, Corey?
No, I don't.
You have the pro-Jewish people over here, you have the environmentalists over here, and then you have the carnival carnies over here. And everything's pulling against each other. Mr. Carney is getting himself into more and more of a pickle, folks, because he's dealing with these splintering factions that are within the Liberal Party. The first one that we talked about was the let's just call it the anti-Jewish hate faction, which is 32 of the caucus members signed a letter basically condemning anti-Semitism. Kind of confusing why the rest of them didn't sign that. 80% of their caucus refused to sign it.
Well, I mean, you think that's a no-brainer, especially for the Liberals that are always going on about, people being persecuted and demeaned and things like this.
Right. So who knows? So that's interesting. As we all saw this week, there seems to be a very real prospect of an end to this conflict, at least temporarily, in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas.
But it sounds like Canada complicated that.
It made it more complicated, as well as Britain and these other countries that were recognizing Hamas, right? So
they were recognizing Palestine,
which is recognizing Hamas.
Which is so I mean.
It complicates it, because it effectively signals to Hamas that, we're getting support.
Yeah, you guys.
And we don't have to do anything.
You can do whatever you want and we'll still support you, which is not the way it's supposed to work, right?
But despite all of that, sounds like the U.S. stepped in and threatened to put the hammer down, and thank goodness, seems like we're going to be getting the rest of the hostages released, and we'll see what ends up at the end of this road. But hopefully this can end in peace in the region, and they can work towards some sort of permanent peaceful solution. But it is what it is. So Carney was on the wrong side of that, and he was on the wrong side of a visit down to the White House, because
as predicted, nothing got accomplished.
Right, as predicted, nothing got accomplished. Mulcair was trying to say, "Oh yeah, something's done. Yeah, and they're going to announce it."
Mulcair is like such a cheerleader for Carney.
All right, let's see this dumpster fire of a panel that happened earlier today.
Our Sunday strategy session is here to dig into the stakes for the federal government on that. Shannon Phillips is a former NDP MLA and cabinet minister in Alberta. Corey tonight was Ontario Premier Doug Ford's campaign manager and former director of communications for Prime Minister Stephen Harper. And Scott Reid is a CTV News political analyst and former communications director to Prime Minister Paul Martin. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Scott, I'll start with you, because what really stuck out to me from the Prime Minister's comments today was kind of how different they were from the federal energy minister the day before, who testified before the Senate and was very much like, this ain't my problem. Alberta's got to convince BC to get on board. The Prime Minister didn't do any of that deflecting, and really, to me, did not rule out the possibility of this happening. Why do you think that is?
Because I think he's playing it smart. I think, by saying that he remains open to the pipeline proposal, by saying that he even remains open to the possibility, depending upon circumstances, that he might move on the tanker ban. I think he is trying to carefully manage what has been brought forward as clearly a provocation, not just a proposal, but a provocation by Danielle Smith. I mean, she's literally just pulled the pin on this grenade, thrown it over, tried to land it in Carney's lap. And I think by taking the position he has, Prime Minister is very carefully putting the pin back into the grenade and handing it over to Alberta again and saying, here, Danielle Smith, I think you may have dropped this. I think it's smart. Ultimately, this thing is going to come to a head. There will or will not be a proposal. There will or will not be consideration of all the policies surrounding it. But it's smart for the Prime Minister to not close the door, because he then robs Danielle Smith of the ability to say, my God, this is an affront to Alberta, and evidence, therefore, that Canada just does not exist. After 158 years, I think we can say safely that Canada exists, that Canada works. And I see the Prime Minister refusing to take the bait. I think that's smart.
Do you think that's what's happening, Corey?
No, I don't. I think this is watching the Liberal Party federally tear itself apart a little bit over these issues. To listen to Carney during the election campaign, pipelines were very much on the table, and I think you heard a bit of that in his press conference. But you got to cross balance that with parts of the former Trudeau government that still exist, including within his cabinet, and new additions like Gregor Robertson, someone who's from the far left of the BC NDP traditionally, who are vehemently anti-pipeline. Stephen Guilbeault is one of the biggest and longest-standing environmental radicals in this country. These guys are part of the Trudeau team and that ethos that are diametrically opposed to this stuff. Carney is more like Harper, frankly, in terms of some of the policies and paths he's been pursuing. And what you're seeing play out in real time is the contradiction between those two sides of the Liberal Party, the Liberal Party of Trudeau versus the Liberal Party of Carney. And I'm increasingly thinking it's irreconcilable without one part of that party being exited at the back.
So Scott Reid, forever on Carney damage control, is trying to say, oh, beautifully played by Mr. Carney, playing it so smart. And meanwhile, this is where, man, I'm actually agreeing with Corey tonight. Corey's calling this what it is. And Scott is not addressing this problem of the fact that he has ministers over here saying, well, I don't know, I don't think this is going to happen. Pipelines are bad and all this stuff. And then Carney is saying, well, maybe, I don't know. That's a very ambiguous message coming from your government. So obviously they're not on the same page. And what? Scott Reid is trying to say, oh, but that's just him being smart, that he's not on the same page with the rest of his cabinet. No, there's something going on there. Because what's supposed to happen is if you have a locked-in team, you have a locked-in leadership, you have a locked-in cabinet, everyone says the same thing, no matter what you're doing.
Well, and they're all working towards the same goal.
Right. And, you have that united front, and it doesn't matter who reporters try and get in and try and get them to say something different. If everyone's saying the same thing, then that shows unity. That shows you actually have a really strong direction. What this says to us is that even though Carney's trying to have a strong direction, he has people that are, surprise, surprise, they're Liberals, trying to look out for themselves. And they're not trying to look out for Canadians. And they're trying to look out for their own radical ideologies. So that's the issue, what's going on here. And this is where the NDP, if you're listening, you can capitalize on this. We don't agree with the far left and radical ideologies, but when they're splintering in the Liberals, that's where you need to say, hey, Liberals, come on over here. Because we actually are consistent on this, and they're not. And the more people that leave from the Liberals to go to NDP, the more support drops from the Liberals. We don't need the support to go up any higher for the Conservatives because it's quite high as it is by historical standards. We just need the Liberals to continue to drop as they already have been. So this is what's going on right now within the Liberal caucus. You have the pro-Jewish people over here, you have the environmentalists over here, and then you have the carnival carnies over here. And everything's pulling against each other. So this is going to be a problem for Mark Carney.
Shannon, you have a lot of experience at the provincial level with a party that may not, not everyone in the party or around the cabinet table may not have believed exactly the same thing about resource development. Do you think, like Corey, that in this instance, at the federal level among the Liberals, that those differences are irreconcilable?
Well, I can tell you without equivocation that anyone who served in the Rachel Notley cabinet was four square behind the Trans Mountain expansion because of what it has actually delivered both to Albertans in terms of royalty revenue and incremental other revenues and to GDP uplift for the entire country. What Carney is doing out here is actually really smart. He's getting out from under the old intellectual cul-de-sac that we've been driven into around pipeline debates, and he's actually reflecting a new Liberal approach to this, but also a new BC NDP approach to this. This is not the BC NDP of 10 years ago, not at all. Premier Eby has been pretty clear that he's happy with LNG expansion. He's happy to dredge the port to make sure more boats more often can take commodities out of that port. He has even said, let's fill the TMX pipeline, or let's even expand it if necessary. So this is a different electoral coalition for the BC NDP, different incentives, and a different Liberal Party. Mr. Carney's actually been really smart here. He has tried to elevate this conversation so that it doesn't drive into the same old dead-end corners that it used to. And he has set the stakes as there needs to be a private sector proponent, there needs to be Indigenous participation, and the fact is, for a West Coast pipeline, you could repeal all the environmental laws you want. You can pass an act of parliament that declares climate change a hoax and make it legal to dump mercury in the river. You will still have Section 35 of the Constitution in your way, and both the Indigenous self-government organizations along the pipeline route, but also at the terminus, have been pretty clear on a North Coast line. And so that remains an obstacle, but what Carney is trying to do is elevate this beyond the old arguments. And I think for his purposes right now, it is a better answer than what Hodgson gave, and I think allows the private sector to understand what the rules of the road are now.
Okay, Corey's shaking his head right now. You go, Corey, and I'll get Scott right after.
Well, it's as clear as mud what's going on, right? So it depends who you're listening to on what day. Like the political minister for British Columbia for this government was on the hurly-burly not a week ago saying with no more pipelines. We've had other members of the cabinet say no more pipelines. You have reports of assurances that tanker bans will be lifted and that the caps will be lifted, coming from Carney to various premiers. And then, ambiguity in the press conference that you just heard. They're doing this dance of the seven veils here around this stuff. And if you're trying to say at the same time that you want to attract private capital and private sector proponents for this, well, just shoveling more and more ambiguity on what the regulatory framework are and what the rules that those will be operated in, it almost makes you feel like you're killing the projects before they can even come forward.
If you know that government is not going to be building a pipeline, right? Government not going to be funding it. Government shouldn't be funding building pipelines.
No, but they should be permitting a pipeline.
Right. But if you make it so convoluted as to what your stance is on a government when it comes to a pipeline, why would any private entity say, let's put together a proposal to actually put one in? Why would anyone do that? And again, when you have the tanker ban in there, when you have Bill C-69 still in place and all of this stuff, why would you?
Well, and that's it. Why, as a private entity, would you take the risk of getting everything ready and maybe, breaking ground and starting to try to make this pipeline, and then maybe in 4 years the government goes, oh no, we changed our mind, no more pipelines, and then you're out all that money.
And I think this is Carney's not so smart way of trying to say, well, no one brought a legitimate pipeline proposal forward, so we couldn't even consider it. Yeah, well, you're not going to do that when there's all of these things in place that would make even investing in the money to create a proposal pointless.
Well, and Canada's lack of a pipeline helps protect Brookfield's interest in pipelines in the States, does it not?
Well, yeah. They're investing more down there. And Enbridge gas up here is sending money down south to build pipelines. They can build them down there. We can't build them up here. And the CEO of Enbridge was like, yeah, this is stupid up here. This is the problem.
I mean, it's like finding some natural resource in your backyard and going, no, I'm going to make it so I can't extract that resource and I can't benefit financially from it, and my neighbors can't have jobs doing that for me. Like, it's ridiculous. You're shooting yourself in the foot.
So this is the game that's being played here, and it's not really being played very well by Mark Carney, because again, he doesn't like domestic politics. Doesn't like it. And we know he doesn't like it because he doesn't play it. Doesn't play it very well at all. He likes being on the international stage. He likes other countries kowtowing to him and paying him homage and being polite to him and all this stuff.
That's a good point. I think maybe that's why he wears his Order of Canada pin. It's because, he wants to be the important guy. Like, look at Pierre. He's always got a Canadian flag on his lapel.
Right. And I would expect, even if Pierre was given the Order of Canada, I would still expect him to wear that Canadian flag, because it's not about you.
It's about the country.
It's about the country. And you don't have to know a thing about Mark Carney. But the fact that he chooses to wear the Order of Canada that says, look what I was given, versus look at the country I want to work for, that should tell you all that you need to know about his priorities.